Velmir begins his next sentence at the camp outside Rotten Willow. The last contract tested him against the dead. This time, his enemies will be very much alive. For the first time in his journey, Velmir is preparing to face Tier 3 human enemies. Before leaving, he gathers what he needs and turns to Leif. Velmir knows how to fight, but he also knows that experience does not mean knowing everything. The bandits of Rotten Willow are not like the men Velmir has faced before. They know how to use different weapons. They know how to exploit openings. And they are skilled enough to punish a single mistake. Leif gives him one final piece of advice. Velmir's mace is powerful enough to break any of them. But power alone will not be enough. Every swing must count. He must position himself so the mace reaches his target without leaving him exposed to the next enemy. One bad step could turn a successful attack into a dangerous situation. But if Velmir can control the space around him, if he can choose where each fight takes place, then even these hardened bandits can be overcome. So, Velmir trusts his training, he trusts his judgment, and he trusts in the gods of Scadia. Velmir entered the bandit stronghold with confidence. He knew that Leif's advice, combined with everything he had learned along the road, would be enough to carry out the sentences that had been placed before him. But this time, the contract demanded something greater. The target was not another nameless bandit. Velmir had been tasked with sentencing the leader of the gang that had taken control of this stronghold, a more dangerous opponent, a greater responsibility. And for Velmir, Another opportunity to prove that his experience had not been gained in vain. The stronghold was much larger than any Velmir had visited before, and with its size came a far greater number of enemies. This was no longer a matter of facing a group of bandits and simply moving forward. Velmir would have to deal with a much wider variety of enemies, each with their own weapons and ways of fighting. But there was another problem: energy. Reaching the gang leader meant crossing the entire stronghold, battle after battle. And although Velmir could control each encounter with his mace, he would have to consider how long he could maintain that pace. It was not enough to win every battle. He had to reach the final confrontation prepared for the greater sentence. This time, the challenge would not be purely tactical. It would also be a test of endurance. Velmir would have to manage his energy, choose when to spend his resources, and above all, know when to conserve his strength. Because defeating the enemies in front of him would mean nothing if he reached the leader with nothing left to carry out the sentence. With every step forward, the versatility of Velmir's enemies became more apparent. Archers, mages, new spear-wielding fighters, all working together to exploit the weaknesses of anyone who dared to enter their territory. Velmir could no longer focus only on the enemies standing directly in front of him. Every advance had to be analyzed. Every encounter had to be carefully considered. One wrong step could leave him trapped within the enemy's strategy, surrounded by opponents capable of attacking from different distances. Velmir would have to read the battlefield carefully, because inside this stronghold, a battle could change long before the first blow was ever struck. Velmir was getting closer and closer to the end of the stronghold, but the battles were beginning to take their toll. Every swing of his mace cost more than the last. The energy he had entered with was no longer the same, and his strikes were beginning to lose the precision they had shown at the beginning. His tactics would have to change. He could no longer rely solely on the strength of his swings. Now, positioning mattered more than ever. Understanding the enemy, waiting for the right moment, choosing when to attack and when to conserve his strength. Because moving forward without thinking could cost him far more than a single blow. But exhaustion would not stop Velmir. His word, his duty, and the trust others had placed in him. He could not afford to lose any of them. For Velmir, that was reason enough to keep moving forward, even when the advantage was no longer on his side. That encounter pushed Velmir to his limits, but it was his tenacity and his determination to never let the weight of his word fall that gave him the strength to execute those dangerous bandits. He had made it this far through his training, but it was his duty that kept him standing. Now, Velmir would have to recover and prepare himself, because everything pointed to the final sentence being closer than ever. And the moment finally arrived, the final duel. But what he found at the end was something he never expected. The gang leader, a warrior who fought with the same style as Velmir, a mace in his hands, the same determination to remain standing, the same refusal to yield before his enemy. Which of them would deliver the sentence? The warrior from Scadia, determined to keep his word, or the leader of the bandits, determined to defend his honor before the men who followed him? Only one of them would walk away from that stronghold, and only one would have the final word. And with Velmir's final swing, the sentence was carried out. The mace of the warrior from Scadia, burdened with responsibility, duty, and the weight of his word, had delivered the final judgment. The gang leader inevitably fell, and as Velmir watched his final enemy collapse, he could feel something different. It was not pride. It was not glory. It was growth. The growth of a respectable warrior, earned through his own merit. No tricks, no shortcuts, nothing to regret. Only keeping his word, fulfilling every promise he had ever made. And with this sentence fulfilled, Velmir had proven once again that a man does not need to abandon his principles in order to grow. He only needs the strength to uphold them.